Coming up on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. This Stutz doesn't look like a dining room. However,
I used to sit in this when I worked at the garage and eat my lunch, never knowing that someday I would own the car.
back home again in Indiana.
Buzzing around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in this, huh, Norm?
Yeah, that was a blast.
And oh, those wacky Shriners.
I'm guessing a little alcohol was mixed in there and they made a parade vehicle out of it.
Plus,
you just stretch one side at a time and you always push to the outside.
installing those tricky headliners in Under the Hood. Oh, it's time to celebrate.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, Dad.
Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte, starts right now.
Hi everybody, welcome to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. I'm Jeff Phelps and we've come to one of the great annual car shows you'll find absolutely anywhere. The 54th annual Father's Day Car Show at Stan Hywet Hall and Gardens in Akron. Over 400 cars on display in 27 different classes with years ranging from 1896 to 1978. Ann and Jean, of all the cars here, with all the subtle elegance that's here, yours just catches my eye maybe more than any other car for the, and again, the subtle elegance of this Lincoln Roadster. It's a beautiful car, Gene.
Well, thank you. The classic Lincolns were considered to be right up there at the top of the quality chain, along with Cadillac and Packard and several other marques. But my father first had an interest in Lincoln, so that's how I got exposed to them. But I always wanted what I termed a Gatsby Roadster. That was my first desire, and he actually found this car for me in St. Louis, and we fell in love with it the first time we saw it. It was different color, but it was all complete. All the parts were there, and we just chose to change the color because it was a custom-bodied car, and you could make it any color you wanted to at that particular time. But
what led to this color?
A lot of trial and error. My father actually restored the car for me, and he's self-admitted colorblind. And so when we said...
That might have been a problem, Gene.
Well, it could have been, because green shows up brown. People, I understand, are colorblind. So we had to kind of do it ourselves and then say, Dad, this is the colors we've come up with.
Has this been touched recently?
We freshened it up this winter. It hadn't been really touched for 30 years, and it was getting a few wrinkles like we are.
Hey, I know those
paint
feelings.
chip, things like that, so we had it freshened up.
What did you do to it specifically?
Just really the exterior paint, that's all. The upholstery and everything else, put new tires on it. The tires are on, over 35 years old.
I love the rumble seat, and I love the little trunk on the side door where the golf club's hanging out.
Yes. It's the golf door. It was really built and appealed to a wealthy sportsman or a bachelor or somebody who played a lot of golf, and it was a great country club car in those days.
Still is today.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
Dave, I think it's only fitting that a man who has worked with Cadillacs all of his life, with Dave Towle Cadillac, owns an original Cadillac. There it sits behind us, and it looks pretty good after all these years.
Really not bad. It's a 41 Cadillac. Fleetwood 60 Special that has 40,000 miles on it, and I am the third owner. Originally sold in New York City to a very wealthy lady, and I think that's a reason for the division window option, like a limousine would have. And then one of our sales representatives bought it back in the early 60s, and he owned it for a number of years, and I purchased it from him.
And it's untouched, unrestored, just the way it was?
Just the way it was. Like he used to say, it's even got a few of those little New York dents in it.
What's the color on this, Dave?
The color is Cavern green, but if you look at it, you're going to say it's black.
Right.
It is so dark a color that it just appears to be black until you look at it very closely and in a good light.
What about this car do you like so much, Dave?
Number one, the originality. Number two, it's a 60 Special. That's the top of the line, other than a limousine, for the 1941 series. And it was the first year of this body style. When it came out, it was a car that was done by the Cadillac styling people back in the late 30s, and finally got it out here in 41 as this car. Cadillac really came alive. It was the first year in 41 they outsold Packard. Packard had been the big car in the late 20s, early 30s. And it was the first year Cadillac outsold Packard, 1941. And unfortunately, obviously, World War II started at the end of that year, so therefore you only had very little production after that, until you came out with the 46 car, and the 46 is an entirely different body car. So really, they're kind of unique in the fact that really only a year and a half old body style.
And you don't plan to touch it?
Absolutely not. I like them original.
Dan, we've talked to some people who have very interesting histories with their cars. Yours is right up there.
The original dealer that sold this car in 1925 is the dealer that we bought it off of 4 years ago. When I was a teenager, I used to work at the dealership in the summer because my uncle was the service manager, and I knew this car and the other antique cars that were there. So later on, the dealership was closing and the cars were being sold. So we bought this one and brought it home about 4 years ago.
Now that history is interesting, but your wife Mary told me about lunch.
I did. I used to sit in this when I worked at the garage and eat my lunch, never knowing that someday I would own the car.
And you were how old at the time?
I was probably 15, 16 years old.
Now see, that's the interesting history. The other stuff was great, but you had lunch in this car, Dan.
Yeah.
All original, under the hood?
The engine's original. We cleaned it, of course, and we repaired the water crack, and all the engine parts were original when it came back to the dealership. And you know, who knows what happened between 25 and when it went in the barn, but as far as we know, all the bearings and valves and pistons and everything's all original to the car. The wheels are re-spoked and new rims, and we of course put the interior in it and the top and had the re-nickel plating. So other than fixing all the mechanical parts, it was an intact car except for a few missing pieces, tail light, vacuum fuel pump, stuff like that. The Stutz Club thinks this is the last surviving dual side mounted spare Roadster, 1925. And the other thing that makes it unique is the engine. It was typical for car manufacturers to buy their engines and transmissions from vendors. And the Stutz used to buy them from a company in Indianapolis called Widley. But in 1924, Widley was going bankrupt, so Stutz designed their own 6-cylinder engine, which they called the Type 691, and that's one of those Stutz engines. In 1926, they went to an 8-cylinder car, so this was the end of the 6-cylinder period, and this is one of the, we think, the last remaining Stutz in-house designed 6-cylinder engines, of course, originally in the last remaining dual side mounted spare 693.
So just for a nostalgia standpoint, you ready to eat lunch one day? You ever go out to the Stutz, pull up a chair and enjoy a sandwich?
I think I'm going to do that today. I think I'm going to go get a sandwich and sit in there and just enjoy it and watch everybody walk by.
For every man, there's a hobby.
And you collect funeral cars?
Yeah, somebody's got to do it.
From funeral home to Shriners Hall. Next on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
RK Motors Charlotte wants your classic car. Let our consignment professionals take the aggravation out of the selling process for you. With an established international customer base, the RK Motors Charlotte consignment program has a 90% sell-through rate. Our top-notch marketing efforts have led to an average sale time of 87 days. We do the work, we do the marketing, we sell your classic for you at maximum value. Visit our website at rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Mark, I don't know if Stan Hywet is giving out an award for the most unique vehicle here at the show, but we'll go ahead and give one out. And you've won, congratulations.
Great.
What exactly is it that you're driving here?
It's a 34 Sayers Stovill Olympian Hearse.
That's a long name for a unique vehicle.
Well, they didn't make very many, and they had a couple of different models, and they made 10 of these.
10, period.
Well, yeah, it says 10 in the book, but I found one and it doesn't even look like this, so I'm not quite sure of the records yet.
And this is a long ways from being a funeral hearse.
Well, the Shriners, I guess, got a hold of it in the 40s, and I'm guessing a little alcohol was mixed in there, and they made a parade vehicle out of it.
A couple of good nights at the Shriners Hall, right?
Yeah, I bought it from the family whose father worked at the funeral home. He bought the car from them, and he was a Shriner, and one thing led to another.
And where'd you find this thing?
I got it out of Iowa. And it was just like in the movies. It was in an old barn, buried and stuff, and he sent me a picture that I could barely make it out, but I got in a truck and trailer, and I saw enough in the picture, I had to go see it. He held it for me. He promised he wouldn't show it to anybody else until I got there.
And how long ago was this?
It was April.
So this is new to the collection.
Yeah.
And why did you want something like this?
Well, in theory, I was going to make one from scratch out of a horse-drawn hearse because you can't find them anywhere.
And
so,
you collect funeral cars.
Yeah. Somebody's got to do it.
And you were going to make one, but?
Well, because you couldn't find them anywhere. But now that I found this one, I don't need to make one.
You don't mind the Shriner stuff on it?
Oh, no, it's coming off.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, next year, I'm going to probably restore the car back next year or the year after, but I'm going to leave it alone for a while. People like you come along, I want to take pictures of it.
Oh, of course. If it was just a funeral car, I don't know if we'd be talking to you right now.
I'll ride it out for a little. I'm looking for more. If anybody's got one rotting away in a garage somewhere, I'll buy it.
Can I ask why funeral cars?
It's just something that happened when I was a kid. Neighbor had them. And then when I was about 17, I had 350 bucks in my pocket. Had no car.
No car at 17,
and I'm driving down the road with a buddy of mine, and we passed a 59 hearse in somebody's front yard, and with shoe polish, it said $350 in the window. Done.
That was a sign right there, wasn't it?
That was it.
And can I ask how many you've had over the years?
1, 2, 3, probably 10, 12 maybe.
Well, congratulations on winning our award for the most unique vehicle in show.
Well, this was kind of painless, so.
A couple of things about your car jump out, Norm. First of all, you don't see too many green cars, but a Marmon, a name that people are not very familiar with. Explain Marmon.
They was a very early car built in Indianapolis, and they were a very, very good car early on. And in 1911, Marmon Wasp race car won the first Indianapolis 500. Of course, the cars were built in Indianapolis too. And they proved to be a very, very good car. And in the Depression, they went out of business.
What made you want to buy a Marmon?
Well, just their history and what I read about them, and an interesting car. Found it on eBay.
Of course.
And it was in October.
And where was the car?
Just north of Orlando, Florida. And a friend of mine lived close by. He was an antique car buff. And he went and checked it out and got it ready for shipping. And I got it in November.
So you bought it sight unseen?
Sight unseen, just pictures.
Woo, brave man. It paid off though, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's got some pretty serious headlights and a pretty serious spot on the side.
That was an original option on the bill of sale. The Lalique hood ornament and the spotlight. And they had the Marmon muster in Indianapolis back in May, which we took the car there to Indianapolis.
And put it on the Speedway.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that
buzzing around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in this, huh, Norm?
Yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah, I'll bet it was. Well, Norm, it's a beautiful car, and congratulations on finding what you were looking for.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, get ready. Brace yourself. Headliner. But there's no need to be afraid.
And you can watch the wrinkles just pull out as you do it.
Under the Hood is next on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
World-class collector vehicles. That's what RK Motors Charlotte is all about. The finest in classic, muscle, and high-performance automobiles. The design and excellence of the 1930s and 40s. The chrome of the 1950s. The muscle of the 1960s and 70s, and much more. RK Motors is the one-stop shop to sell your car, add a new prize to your collection, or restore an old friend to past glory. Learn more about RK Motors Charlotte at rkmotorscharlotte.com. Under the Hood is presented by RK Motors Charlotte, specializing in the sale, build, and restoration of world-class collector vehicles.
When folks are looking to buy a classic car, sometimes the one thing that will scare them more than anything is a bad headliner. If it's torn, if it's ripped, if it just needs repaired. Ralph Farinacci is the man who handles all the interiors here at RK Motors Restoration. Ralph, headliners don't have to scare people away, do they?
No, not so ever. If you need to replace it, something somebody could do in their driveway or in their garage on a Saturday afternoon. You pull the old headliner out, and before you pull it out, you got all the bows in the headliner. And what you do is you center mark the headliner on the new one. All your bows, as you're pulling the headliner down, you mark the holes on the sides of which hole they came out, because usually a conglomeration of 3 different holes, and you take a marker, mark which hole they come out of. You put the bows in as you take them out of the old hole.
And
headliner.
the bows are what?
The bows are what hold it to the roof.
Okay.
You pull each bow out one at a time, put them into the new headliner the same way you took them out of this one. And main thing is you want to make sure the bows are nice and clean, no rust on them, because it helps the headliner slide when it goes in. Here's the bows right here. As you can see, this is your number 1 bow, the way it came out. Here's the 3-hole conglomeration I was telling you about on each side. What you do is you put the bows back into the holes. Camaros, they have clips up here. You clip it into the center. And the first thing you want to do after you have all the bows in place is you have your center line you made. Center line goes directly where your mirror was, and you center it, and you tack that into the front. And what you want to do is you start one side and then go to the other side on this. You just stretch one side at a time, and you always push to the outside, in which is going to give you a nice taunt headliner, but you only go to the post on each side. Your A-pillar post is your front pillar. Same thing in the rear. You have your center marked. You have your back window back here marked with center. You pull it and stick just the center. And all you want to do is just pull it. You don't want to over pull them and overstretch them. And what you use to hold the headliner up is you need wildwood contact cement. You could go up to any store and get wildwood contact cement. Now that we've got that part done, we're going to go to the sides. You can see your front and rear done. All your bows are hanging. And you just want to glue up the edge where it sticks at. And that's it. You don't want to over glue it because there's no need to. And then you just keep going down the line on both sides. Heat it up. You want to pull it straight towards the outside and stick it. And you can watch the wrinkles just pull out as you do it. You do 2 bows, then go to the other side. You just keep moving. You don't stay in one spot. And don't get worried about it. If you start getting a slight wrinkle in something, you don't worry about it, because it all pulls out. You have control over what you're doing. Main thing is just removing all trim around the headliner first. And as you work your way, you'll start to see that the headliner's starting to get taut with no wrinkles in it. And you just keep moving your way back all the way until you got the headliner done. And you just you just glue exactly where the old headliner was, is all you're doing. Your back corners by your back window usually are your hardest spots, but those are the last you do. You work your wrinkles to the rear. As you can see, this whole side's done now. It's nice if you have a pair of scissors or a razor blade, but I suggest scissors because razor blades would slide kind of easy and cause you an accident if you're not real careful. And what you're doing is just getting everything trimmed up. As you can see, once you put the quarter panel back in place, this will be finished. One important thing I forgot to mention is when you take the car apart, take and put all your screws back in the same place that you took them out of, your visors, whatever. Put all the screws back in the same hole before you start to install the headliner. You won't have to look for your screws in where everything goes. And if you get a little slight pucker like this, you just take your heat gun or whatever, hold it about 6 inches away, and just let it constantly keep moving in a circle motion, and you'll see that'll just disappear for you. It's just allowing the material to flow where it's supposed to go with the rest of the headliner. When you take it down, you see this will tuck up in there like this. So when the trim goes on there, Everything is well hidden. You have no wrinkles nowhere. You've got extremely tight headliner. You know, and this is basically all people are worried about, and there's nothing to worry about. It's a very simple operation. As you see, I'm tucking it up in here. You can see exactly the finished edge now. That's a headliner.
Under the Hood is presented by RK Motors Charlotte, specializing in the sale, build, and restoration of world-class collector vehicles. Visit our website at rkmotorscharlotte.com. Automotive passion runs deep at RK Motors Restoration. Our master body, paint, and mechanical technicians have decades of award-winning experience restoring some of the world's finest collector cars. Flawless paint and bodywork, highly accurate interiors, engines that run better than new. Each restoration is completely documented and finished to award-winning Concours quality specifications. From project car to automotive perfection, visit rkmotorscharlotte.com to make it happen.
Now back to the Stan Hywet Father's Day Car Show on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Adam and John, it's only fitting that on a Father's Day car show, we have a father-son car project. Your GTX, Adam, it's yours. You're
Yes.
26 years old, and you've had this how long?
12 years, since I was 14.
A 14-year-old guy getting a car from a dad who had what in mind, John?
Show him how it's done.
And you did.
Yep.
And you guys did this together.
Yes.
How long did this take, Adam, from the time you were 14?
What do you think, 10 years?
Yep.
I think it was about 10 years.
Did you want a GTX? Why'd you settle on a GTX, John?
Well, he wanted a GTX because I have a 67.
Oh.
So it kind of runs in the family a little bit there.
He's got a convertible. It's a learning curve. It's still getting there. You know, you never know as much as Dad, but every day you pick something up new. And I think it started with a Speedo gear. It was one of our first fixes on that, because it would read 55 and we were only doing 25 mile an hour, and so that was one of the first fixes. And then we did brakes, and then we kind of progressed, and then we did the motor. And when the motor was done, we kind of looked at each other and said, we're going to have this big bad motor, and we're going to have a car that's not going to be able to stand tall for what the motor's going to produce. So that started, next thing you know, fenders and doors and everything else started coming apart.
And all of a sudden, John, it doesn't look anything like it looked?
Oh no, I am shocked. But when it's done, I couldn't believe it. I mean, we worked so hard on this thing, and then you step back and you look at it and it's like, this is not the same car. But it was well worth it.
It's a beautiful car. Every day I see it, I still am in awe that it's mine, and it's beautiful.
And then you add to that the fact that it actually has some real meaning.
Yeah, I'll never forget it. I mean, there's, you know, it means a lot to me.
To watch him grow through this whole thing was just incredible.
Well, happy Father's Day.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, happy Father's Day, Dad.
Don't tear up on me, guys, okay?
No, we won't. My mom's too tough. She'd have her heads.
Glad we've taken care of that Father's Day dilemma for you. Next year when Father's Day rolls around, bring Dad to one of the longest running car shows in the United States, what will be the 55th annual Father's Day car show here at Stan Hywet Holland Gardens. I'm Jeff Phelps, and we'll see you next time on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.